Hi, it's your pal Steamed Hams. Join me as I discuss topics in the nerd world such as gaming, movies, cartoons, toys, and whatever else may have you. You can find me on the socials as SteamedHams81, on Twitch, Twitter, currently known as X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and as The Unforgettable Luncheon on Facebook. Also, check out Steamed Hams Merchtorium. Links to all are in the description of this podcast. And don't forget to try my new fan mail link where you can send me a text and tell me how I'm doing. Click that link and send me a message. The Unforgettable Luncheon, nerd comedy at its okayest. They say the definition of insanity is repeating the same action over and over again, expecting a different result. Now you would think a hyper-intelligent AI would not be susceptible to that. But thanks to Skynet not learning its lesson, we were blessed, or cursed, with 6, yes, count them, 6 Terminator films. I'm back, and I'm talking about the Terminator movie franchise, Part 1, today on The Unforgettable Luncheon. Hi, it's your pal Steamed Hams. I hope you're ready for an unforgettable luncheon. Before we get into the time travel insanity that is the Terminator films, I think I should tell you what in the wide world of sports is going on with my life. Yes, I know I've been gone since December, and I apologize. Between life and work, I've had very little time to record, stream, or even write these ideas out. But I've been a busy boy regardless. In April, I made my return to the stage doing stand-up at the C2E2 talent show at the C2E2 comic book convention in Chicago, Illinois. I did pretty good for not having done live comedy for almost 20 years. Believe it or not, I used to do stand-up way back in the day. But now, I also have a sponsorship with GrabTap, where you can play games and earn gift cards. It's a lot of fun. The link is in my link tree in the description to this podcast. Click through it and play some games, earn some stuff, and help your old boy out. And I've also started up Extra Life again this year. I'm once again playing for the Ann and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. Of course, links to all this will be in the description, along with, of course, Steamed Hams Merchtorium, which has a few new items. I have been working a lot at my full-time and part-time jobs, but now my schedule has eased enough for me to truly get back into this. I miss this fun, and I promise I'm going to be more consistent again. Now, on with the show. The original Terminator film was released in 1984, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Biehn, and Linda Hamilton. It was actually inspired by a fever dream that James Cameron had experienced during the release of his film Piranha 2 in Rome. Now, honestly, I've seen Piranha 2. That's a fever dream in and of itself. Now, this film opens with a title card explaining that Skynet, an advanced AI supercomputer, which they didn't have AI back then, they just said supercomputer, became self-aware and decided that humanity was the problem. So made sure we all got good and nuked. But not everyone was killed, and humanity organized a resistance, led by John Connor. When the resistance was about to win and topple Skynet for good, Skynet decided to send a cyborg called a Terminator back to 1984 to assassinate John's mother before he was born. The Terminator is basically a robot endoskeleton covered in living tissue to disguise itself as a human, basically an infiltrator unit. The Terminator is played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you don't know that by now, what kind of rock have you been living under? He arrives in 1984 butt-ass naked, as only organic material can travel through time. I'm not making that part up. I think they just wanted a reason to get him butt-ass naked. I don't know. The Terminator gets his clothes from some punks and heads off to a gun shop where he kills the proprietor and steals a bunch of guns. He then starts going through the phone book to look for Sarah Connor. Now, they explain this in the film as a lot of records were lost in the war, so it's basically just being systematic. Because back then, we didn't think things would be computerized or on an internet back in 1984, so everything was still paper, and that probably all fried. And for those of you wondering what a phone book is, that was this magical book we had back in the 80s and 90s that contained everybody's phone number along with businesses and whatnot. So if you really wanted to look somebody up, you pulled out their name, you went through that phone book, and of course, you found their name and address, which in hindsight is kind of a bad thing now, but also, who the hell uses a phone book when we have Google? Or Skynet Lite, as I call it. So, arriving the same night as the Terminator, a resistance soldier named Kyle Reese shows up. He's played by Michael Biehn, and he's also butt-ass naked, because I don't know what their whole thing was with people just showing up naked. He quickly acquires pants from a homeless man. I mean, tactical decision, what are you going to do? And steals a shirt and coat from a department store while evading the police. And he steals guns from the cops and takes off to look for Sarah. After murdering two different women named Sarah Connor, the Terminator's antics were noticed by the police and the news. A waitress named Sarah Connor, who was surprisingly next on the list, played by Linda Hamilton, sees the news reports and is, well, genuinely alarmed. Holy shit, someone's running around killing women with my same name. I could be on that list. She kind of was. So the Terminator shows up at Sarah's apartment, kills her roommate Ginger and Ginger's boyfriend Matt when, he mistakes her for Sarah. And then realizes, oh shit, that's not her, but whatever. It's my job to terminate people. Reese and the Terminator both find Sarah at a local nightclub where a gunfight ensues and many people are terminated. The pair escape the Terminator but are picked up by the police. And Kyle regales everybody with the story of the Great Judgment Day and the war against the machines and coming from 2029 and they're all going to kill us if we don't stop this guy. He's interrogated by police criminal psychologist Dr. Silberman, who's actually the only recurring side character throughout pretty much all of the movies. He's played by Earl Bowen. And it honestly gets more comical as each appearance comes up. So the Terminator shows up at the police station and kills a bunch of cops while looking for Sarah and Kyle. They, of course, escape, why wouldn't they, and seek refuge in a motel where they build pipe bombs and cook up a plan to defeat the Terminator once and for all. Now, Kyle admits to Sarah that he's had the hots for her ever since he saw a picture of her that John gave him in the future. So, of course, when Connor says, hey, who wants to go back in time and stop a Terminator from offing my mom? You guarantee Reese was in the back like horseshit going, ooh, 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 Mr. Connor, Mr. Connor, Mr. Connor, Mr. Connor, I'll do it. Because, and then, of course, they have obligatory 80s action movie sex, which, makes him John Connor's dad. Weird time paradox bullshit going on, but we'll get to that. And then they set out to destroy the Terminator. Of course, they are found and pursued by Robo Arnold, who they hit with pipe bombs and toss him off his motorcycle. Kyle's wounded because the Terminator shoots him while he was throwing a pipe bomb. And the Terminator steals a tanker truck to try and flatten Sarah. Kyle shoves a pipe bomb up the truck's tailpipe, Beverly Hills Cop style, and blows it to smithereens. Of course, all the fire burns the flesh off the Terminator, and now he's just a big scary robot, leaving its not-so-creamy robot center exposed. It pursues them into a factory owned by, who else? Cyberdyne Systems, the creators of Skynet. Kyle blows up the Terminator blows the Terminator in half, at the cost of his own life, unfortunately. Its still active torso chases Sarah until she uses a hydraulic press to destroy it. Months later, Sarah, now pregnant with John and driving through Mexico when she stops at the gas station, a local boy takes a photo of her. The exact photo that John eventually gives to Kyle. And after being warned that a storm is coming, she's like, I know. Drives off into the literal storm and figurative storm that she's about to encounter. Now, some fun stuff about this movie, which was actually pretty cool, but I saw the second one before I saw the first one because I was only like 3 when the original came out. One of the actors considered for the Terminator, and this is kind of like old news at this point, but for some people, you never know. One of the original considered actors was O.J. Simpson, but he was turned down because he wasn't believable as a killer. Yeah, that aged well. They're probably like, oh, we could have used him. Shit. That'd be bad. Now, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, released in 1991, and one of the first R-rated films I saw in the theater. Follows a now 10-year-old John Connor, looking a hell of a lot older than 10, at least 13 to 14, played by Edward Furlong, and takes place in 1995. He's in foster care while Sarah is locked away in a mental hospital for trying to blow up a Cyberdyne factory. I mean, good intentions, but, don't get caught by the cops. Skynet sends a new Terminator, a T-1000, played by Robert Patrick, who is made of an almost indestructible liquid metal. Now, here's where I start to have questions. Now, if they established in the previous film that only organic matter can travel through time, how is liquid metal, which is not considered a living organic material, able to travel? But it's a movie, suspension of disbelief. You gotta do that for a little bit. I mean, you got killer robots, time traveling, chasing people. That's the thing I'm gonna harp on, yeah. And at the same time, a Model T-800, which was the kind that went after Sarah in 1984, in fact, exact same model looking like Arnold, also shows up. The T-800 gets his clothes from a biker bar along with a motorcycle and a shotgun, and the T-1000 steals the uniform of an LAPD cop that he encounters and incapacitates. Both go on the search for John Connor. But the fun twist that you didn't know up until a certain point in the movie, who was the good guy? Who was the bad guy? Now, the way that it was filmed was they were looking at Arnold was the bad guy in the previous, so you would rightfully assume that Arnold is the bad guy once again, and that the T-1000 is actually another human resistance fighter showing up to try to rescue John once again. But no, somebody in marketing decided to ruin that surprise by basically advertising that Arnold's the good guy this time. And if you go into it without watching, after seeing the first one, going into this one cold, you would legit have those thoughts until the Terminator looks at John and says, "Come with me if you want to live." And then, of course, he shoots the T-1000 and realizes, holy hell, he's made of something that's not entirely destructible. Shit. So both Terminators do track John to a local mall, where they both catch him at the same time, and that's where Arnold reveals that he's actually there to protect John. And they escape on the T-800's motorcycle with the T-1000 in hot pursuit, and that motherfucker can run. In fact, Robert Patrick trained so much to do that run where he wouldn't have to breathe so hard that he kept catching up to Edward Furlong on his motorbike. So, what the fuck? So he hijacks a semi-truck to chase after him and to try to, run John down, because that seems to be a recurring theme in these movies. And of course, the T-800 intervenes and successfully evade the T-1000 by blowing up the truck. John learns that the T-800 was reprogrammed by him to protect him instead of terminating him. And of course, he doesn't want the Terminator to just kill people willy-nilly. So he makes him promise not to kill people pretty much unnecessarily. And of course, after finding out that his foster parents were killed by the T-1000 in order to trap him, John convinces the Terminator to head up to the Pescadero State Hospital for the violently insane to break Sarah out to battle the T-1000. They make their way inside and intercept Sarah as she was, oddly enough, attempting to escape herself. So, of course, the T-1000 catches up to everybody, and a wonderful little gun battle ensues, and the trio escapes with the T-1000 in hot pursuit, who obviously doesn't catch them. And they take refuge in an old gas station where they can kind of lick their wounds, and Sarah kind of interrogates the T-800 and figures out what's going on with him. They decide to head down to Mexico to Sarah's friend Enrique to regroup and get supplies for the oncoming battle. Sarah learns from the T-800 that Skynet was built using a microprocessor that was actually from the Terminator tried to get her in 1984. So Sarah's like, what do I do with this information? She takes a nap, has a nightmare about watching LA get nuked and not being able to do anything about it. So she decides to go kill the guy that ends up creating Skynet, Miles Dyson, who had reverse engineered stuff from the original Terminator to make his microprocessors that would eventually go into Skynet and create the T-800 and so on and so forth. Okay? So she attacks him in his home, but can't bring herself to finish the job once she sees he's got a family. Thankfully, John and the T-800 arrive, and Sarah reconciles with John, and the T-800 explains to Miles that what his work is doing will eventually bring about the end of the world, and that Miles reveals that he reverse engineered the CPU from the 1984 Terminator to bring Skynet to fruition. But he's like, you know what? I can't do this. I'm going to destroy my work. So he gets rid of everything, in his house, and they decide to go to Cyberdyne and blow everything up to Kingdom Come and get the CPU and the ARM. Of course, as is going to happen, the police show up and assault the building. They kill Dyson, and he drops the detonator, blowing the entire building up. But not before the T-800 gets into one of the coolest scenes in the movie, where he gets a minigun. Yes, an actual minigun. This was my first introduction to a minigun being a real thing. And he just rips apart the cop cars. Just like he doesn't kill or injure any cops, but he just basically causes chaos. Now, the fun thing was a minigun. You can't actually handhold those things. Like, Schwarzenegger can do it because he is strong as hell. Okay? But there's a reason that motherfuckers are mounted. Okay? Trust me, big boom guns need to be mounted because the recoil is ridiculous. Of course, why not? The T-1000 shows up and pursues the surviving trio into a steel mill. After a really cool car chase and helicopter/car chase that eventually becomes a car and truck chase, and the Terminator hitting him with a grenade launcher repeatedly, he chases them into a steel mill. The T-1000's temporarily stopped when he's frozen with liquid nitrogen from the truck he was driving after it gets compromised. The T-800, of course, shoots him with his now signature famous line, "Hasta la vista, baby," and shatters him. But the heat of the steel mill melts him. He reconstitutes and continues to go after them. So, of course, there's a fight between all of them and the T-1000. The T-1000 is able to wound Sarah and temporarily disable the T-800 by ripping off his arm and jamming a pole right through his power source. He decides to mimic Sarah and call John out to trap him. But of course, the real Sarah shows up and like, not in my house, and shoots him. And just when they think all is lost, the Terminator shows up with his grenade launcher, pops the T-1000, blows him up, pushes him into the vat of molten steel, where he dissolves and is gone. So they throw the chip and the arm into the lava, or not the lava, but the steel, to destroy it and make sure that Skynet can't come to exist. And the Terminator says, well, there's one more chip. It's in me. We have to destroy it. I can't do it myself. I need you to lower me in. And he finally kind of understands the humanity that John was trying to teach him this entire movie. Now, my other problem is, so he gets his arm ripped off. Did they remember to kind of go and check and look, where's his arm? So we don't have history fucking repeating itself again. They don't tell you. So it ends with Sarah narrating over John and her driving to Mexico, thinking, hey, we've stopped Judgment Day, but we're still just going to escape. We don't know what the world will bring now because we just changed history. Or have they? Now, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, was released in 2003, starring, of course, Arnold as the T-850, an upgraded version of the T-800, and Nick Stahl as an adult John Connor. It also stars Christiana Loken as the TX, or Terminatrix, a brand new liquid metal Terminator with an indestructible exoskeleton, who can also control other mechanical devices. So vehicles, Terminators, you name it. So this one's off to once again try to destroy John. Unfortunately, John is now living off the grid, so they can't find his location. So, secondary mission. We're going to kill all his lieutenants. So she starts running around and killing them. You know, often teenagers and young adults, because they're going to be fighting the resistance in, 10, 20, 30 years. Okay, so this takes place 10 years after Terminator 2. Sarah has died from cancer, which I believe was just Linda Hamilton wasn't able to be in the project, so they wrote her off. The TX finds John and his future wife, Kate Brewster, who also happens to be one of his lieutenants, at a veterinarian's office that Kate works at when John was trying to steal drugs, thinking they were painkillers to treat a wound that he had. Of course, it realizes, holy shit, that's John Connor, the guy I've been looking for, and now he's the new target. Of course, the T-850, the new version of Arnold's Terminator, shows up and rescues them, gets them the fuck out of there. And his intention is to drive them to Mexico to avoid the nuclear attack that is going to still very much be happening. Judgment Day hadn't been averted, just delayed. I got a question. It's like, one of the other things that's bothered me is, this is the third time that Skynet has sent a Terminator back to get John Connor at a different point in his life. I mean, how long is it actually waiting before it sends a Terminator and says, oh shit, that didn't work. Let's try this one. Nope, try this one. Or is it sitting there going, let's wait. It's like, well, I couldn't kill his mom, so let's kill him as a child. Nope. Let's try this. Oh, that didn't work. And my other thing is, why not go after Sarah while she's like very pregnant or giving birth, when she's most vulnerable? No, they go after her when she's the least vulnerable. But I digress. Back to the story. They end up stopping by a mausoleum where Sarah supposedly was interred, but really had a stockpile of weapons that she put together in case the Terminators came back. I mean, he does keep saying, I'll be back. So they get into a shootout with the cops, who think that he has something to do with Kate's fiance's death. when actually that was the TX, of course. And we get one final appearance from Dr. Silberman, who finally sees the Terminator, is like, well, shit, and he runs. Smart man. So they escape the shootout, and they head to Mexico after ditching the TX, who got into a real nice car chase by taking over a bunch of construction equipment and trucks and leading this whole fleet to try to stop them, which obviously they didn't. So John orders the T-850 to take Kate to see her father, Air Force Lieutenant General Brewster. He's heading up the project that ends up being Skynet. The Terminator refuses to jeopardize his mission, but when Kate says, take me to see my dad, he's like, okie dokie. Because it turns out that the reason this Terminator will not listen to John is because that very Terminator in 2032 killed John, infiltrated, and he said, hey, holy shit, it's an Arnold-looking Terminator. I remember this guy, he's got to be good. And he walks up and goes, nope, pop, dead. And Kate's like, fuck this shit. They catch him, reprograms him, and she sends him back in time to protect John once again. I don't know how she knew that she had to go protect John, but they don't explain it. At this point, there's not much explanation that needs to be done. It just happens. So, General Brewster is pressured by the Joint Chiefs to activate Skynet to take out an anomalous virus that's invading servers worldwide. Because you see throughout the movie, hey, credit card system's down. Oh, we're having trouble with the internet. I can't do this. Little do they know that's just Skynet becoming self-aware and starting to become sentient and take over the internet. John and Kate arrive too late to stop him from letting Skynet off its leash. It takes control of various killer robots and slaughters all the employees. The TX shows up and kills the general, but not before he gives John and Kate the location of Skynet's core at Crystal Peak, a facility built in the Sierra Nevada mountains, basically a nice fallout shelter. The TX damages the T-850 and uses its little ability to corrupt his programming, forcing him to try to kill John and do its job for her. Of course, the TX also gets caught in a particle accelerator and is temporarily, stopped in her tracks. And as the T-850 attempts to kill John, John convinces him to choose between his conflicting orders, and the Terminator's like, and shuts down. John and Kate escape via single-engine aircraft to Crystal Peak with the TX in a hot pursuit in a helicopter. Helicopter versus plane, that's kind of funny. It's like, you're going to catch them, they're going to have one hell of a head start. The T-850 reboots and gets rid of that corrupted programming, joins them via helicopter that he crashes into the helicopter flown by the TX. Wow, I thought car chases were crazy in this movie. The 850 is able to hold the bunker door long enough for John and Kate to get locked in while he battles the TX. And he destroys the TX and himself by detonating his damaged hydrogen fuel cell, which they established earlier in the movie, causes a small nuclear explosion. John and Kate find that it's not Skynet's core in the bunker, as Skynet was already in the networks, hence it needs no core. It's a command and control fallout shelter meant for government officials and military. Judgment Day starts as Skynet launches the nukes, intending to get rid of the human problem. Radio messages soon come into the shelter via emergency channels. John responds to them, tentatively taking command and organizing what will be the resistance movement. So these were the first 3 films of the Terminator franchise. These are the only ones that had true continuity. Now, Terminator 3 was released around the just before Arnold Schwarzenegger started running for governor of California, which he was elected in 2004, I believe, if I remember right. Yeah, 4, because they always elect him on even numbers. So this was kind of like a little kind of political vehicle for him, more or less. Now, the movies went from good to great, which I will always say Terminator 2 was the best out of them, to did we kind of need this one? Because James Cameron was like, we wrapped the story up nice and neat in Terminator 2, we don't need a 3, but everyone's like, we want 3, we want 3. And he's like, okay, but I'm not directing it. Now, another interesting thing that happened with Terminator 3 was Kate's boyfriend, who is referred to in the movie as Scott Mason. Now, the thing was, they had to change his name because in the original, when they originally filmed this, his name was Scott Peterson. Those of you who know true crime and remember back in 2002, 2003, there was a man named Scott Peterson who murdered his pregnant wife, Lacey. So they're like, considering the TX eventually assumes his identity and tries to kill him or kill her while looking like him, yeah, let's change his name. But if you look in the credits, he's still listed as Scott Peterson, which is kind of funny. Now, Terminator 2 had some other fun stuff I didn't bring up, such as the fact that Edward Furlong aged during the long production, so of course they had to pitch up his voice, they had to make concessions so that continuity-wise he would still be able to be shorter or eye-to-eye with Sarah, whereas he was now probably getting taller than Linda Hamilton. So, I mean, the movies were all good in their own way. I mean, obviously I saw the second one first one second, the third one third. And there were various video games, most notably the Terminator 2 arcade game, a really awesome rail shooter that, believe it or not, I am, as of today, I want a 6th or 7th in the world in scoring on that game. I used to be 3rd. I got knocked down. It's going to happen. And there were various console games. There was a Super Nintendo Terminator 2 game that was a lot of fun. It actually adhered to the don't kill people thing in later levels, where you just had to kneecap the dudes, because if you shot them and killed them, that was a no-bueno. So, and then there was a shitty Terminator. There were 2 different Terminator 2 games for the Super Nintendo and Genesis. There was the rail shooter, and then there was another one that just made no fucking sense. And it was like hard as hell. But I think it was LJN, so that explains a lot. There was, I believe, a Terminator Nintendo game, and originally there was one game that was a licensed Terminator game. They lost, Sunsoft lost the license, and it became the classic game Journey to Silliness, which was actually pretty cool because I have it on my Switch. I don't believe Terminator 3 really got any games, which I'm not mad about. And there are various ones for current and previous gen consoles, but we'll go into that at another time. We're actually, because there are so many movies, we're splitting this into 2, as I said before. Next time we're going to talk about the ones that didn't maintain a real continuity. Salvation, which talks about John Connor's early years in Resistance. Terminator Genesis, which reboots things in terms of Sarah Connor, John Connor, the Resistance, all that stuff. And then Dark Fate, which I will arguably say is the best out of those 3, is the true Terminator 3. But we will go into those next episode, because I don't want to be here forever. I'm sure everybody's just glad to have me back, just not that much of me. Well, that's it for another Unforgettable Luncheon. I hope a good time was had by all. Check out my links to the socials in the description. There's a link tree now, along with Steamed Ham's Merchatorium. And of course, check out GrabTap. I will leave the link to my GrabTap in the description, along with my Extra Life link. Please consider donating to Extra Life. Game day is November 8th this year, where I will probably spend a day playing 80s franchise games. I'm your pal, Steamed Ham. Please join me next time when the topic will be something nerdy.